Good morning. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. I'm Barry Bryson, and we're continuing our study of the Gospel of Matthew, and we're beginning in chapter 18. Matthew chapter 18 is the fourth of the 5 major sermons in the book of Matthew, and it is popularly referred to as the Kingdom Sermon because it's about life in the kingdom. It's about us getting along. It's about forgiving each other and encouraging each other, and what to do when we have conflict that cannot seem to be resolved. And it is delivered while they're still in Galilee, but at the end of Jesus' public ministry before he heads south to go to Jerusalem to be crucified. It says in chapter 18, verse 1, and we're going to read through verse 6. At that time the disciples came to Jesus, saying, "Who then is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven?" He called a child to himself and stood him in their midst, and said, "Truly I say to you, unless you are converted and become like little children, you shall not enter the kingdom of heaven. Whoever then humbles himself as this child, he is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. And whoever receives such one such child in my name receives me. But whoever causes one of these little ones who believe to stumble, it is better for him that a heavy millstone be hung around his neck, and that he be drowned in the depth of the sea." Well, we've been seeing the progress the disciples have been making in their understanding and in their learning process in chapter 17. And so they bring him this question again. It's a question they've argued about amongst themselves, much to Jesus' consternation and ire. But now they ask him, and he tells them. And he calls a child and stands this little boy in their midst. And Jesus says you have to be converted and be like this child, or you'll never enter the kingdom. You have to humble yourself like this child. I've heard so much silliness, drivel, used to explain what Jesus means by becoming a child when Jesus says what he means by that. Some people have said children are so honest, and I don't believe that at all. You know, children start lying as soon as they can say words. You know, a 2-year-old, an 18-month-old that can't say very many words, you ask them, do they need a diaper change? And they'll tell you no when everyone in the room says they do, because they don't want to stop and get their diaper changed. That's all lie. It's one of the first skills we learn when we learn to communicate. Jesus says this is about being humble. The one thing you know when you're a kid is that you're a kid. You know that you need mom and dad to take care of you. And when that becomes at risk for health reasons, for other reasons, maybe because your folks split up, I mean, it's so traumatic because you know that you are not sufficient in yourself. It's that humility, that self-awareness of your vulnerability, of how needy you are for someone bigger than yourself to take care of you. That's what he's talking about. And they don't have that yet. They know they can't operate without him around, but they're still wondering who's the best. Like they're going to achieve some sort of superior status one over the other. And Jesus makes it very clear by using a visual, lesson and showing them a child and said, this person knows who they are, who they truly are. They know how vulnerable they are and how needful they are. And you guys don't know that yet. And until you change completely and understand what this guy understands, you're never going to be who you ought to be in the kingdom. And then he talks about the people who are babes, children. And I think he's talking about actual children, but also babes in Christ, people who are new to the kingdom. And he's saying, if you cause one of these little ones to stumble, you will not go unpunished. It's a dire warning. You know, I mean, kids have big ears and big eyes, and they see and they know. And when we are cavalier about airing our grievances about the elders or about our brothers and sisters in Christ or just about how things are going in front of our kids and imprint upon them at an impressionable age that church is a place of conflict, that it's a place of hurt feelings, we do damage to them. And when we do that to new Christians and we don't give them room to grow, but we immediately involve them in controversy or in faction, and we permanently damage their faith, God takes that seriously, and we will answer for it one day. And now we are forewarned by Jesus, are we not? Well, next time, as we continue the kingdom sermon, Jesus is going to use some things that we know from other passages, even something that he's already said in this gospel, in the first sermon that he preaches, the Sermon on the Mount, but he's going to use them in different ways than he uses them elsewhere. But that's okay. That's what preachers do. You know, you got a good story, you can make a lot of use out of it. Good illustration can go a long way in different directions. And we're going to see Jesus, or I will, as the master preacher tomorrow as he continues his kingdom sermon. We'll pick up there next time. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word.